Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a This Is Not a Top 10, and it's going to be on soapy fragrances. My fragrance choice from yesterday inspired me. It's a video I've been threatening to do for a long time. Today we actually took my daughter to the zoo. She is turning 3, and even though it's October here in Texas, oh my God, it's so hot still. You know, it's just, if my face is red, it's because we were out in the sun for so long. But we got to see a bunch of animals, so it was great, which is what you would expect to do at a zoo. Before we do the soapy fragrances, we are going to do scent of the day, as is common on Channel Ramsey. Oh my God, I was just emanating this stuff at the zoo. Like, I just felt like a boss all day. I'm sure the animals were like, what is that he's wearing? Dunhill Blend 30, a true unicorn. Many people compare this to the great Paco Rabon. And actually, I was talking to Rich Mitch today, my BFF, my fragrance BFF from across the pond. And look at this 200 ml, 250 ml bottle that I have. Oh God, it's just a thing of beauty. And he said, I would really like to smell this. And I said, don't bother, just go buy it. If I know you well enough, my feathered friend, you're gonna love it. This is, you know, ram duck territory through and through. It's got an amazing aromatic, spicy, woody vibe. Oh, the spices in here are just to die for. I mean, this, you know, masculine, sweaty, clary sage with old school rosemary. It's from 1978. And this has this unbelievable dry down that goes into so many territories. You know, it has the freshness of geranium, which is going to play into, you know, geranium can sometimes come across as very clean and soapy. It doesn't come across in this fragrance that way. It comes across as very spicy. And there's spicy carnation with it. That old school carnation geranium combo was a huge one back in the day, with resins like labdanum, and there's tonka. There's supposedly real ambergris in this. It smells like there's real ambergris. And of course, that just slug of old school oak moss. It is just stunning. In fact, one of the people who I know and trust very well, I won't say who it is in case he doesn't want to publicly go on record saying this, but we were chatting, and he said, I think this is the greatest masculine vintage fragrance in my collection. I went, and then I really thought about it, and I said, you know what? That's not so outlandish, actually. I could see this just being like a grail, and I'm so happy to have 250 mils of this stuff. I'm just, it's amazing. Wearing it today was on October 1st was just, and I could smell it all day. That's what's so great about it. I mean, I haven't even reapplied. It's been 9 hours and I can smell it clear as day. I mean, I probably should just douse myself with it, but you don't have to. That's the crazy thing. So anyways, I'll one of these days, I'm going to do full reviews on all of my favorites, but you know, for now, we'll stick to these videos where I can talk about a bunch of fragrances and early impressions, and the full reviews on the big boys will come. Okay, so let's start talking about soapy fragrances, because there's a couple different ways soapy fragrances can present themselves to me. Sometimes this blue ambroxan ambergris can give off a soapy vibe. Sometimes neroli, orange blossom, or petit grand can give off this very soapy vibe to me. Sometimes aldehydes can give off a soapy vibe. And sometimes musks, white musks, clean white musks can give off a soapy vibe. So this is a very subjective video. I did try and break it down maybe into sections. So I'll say, okay, here's kind of the neroli, petit grand, here's the barbershop soapy, here's the, you know, clean geranium coming through, that kind of thing. I did try and at least put a little bit of thought into how I presented it to you, but there's stuff everywhere and it's unranked, you know, except for I saved the last couple from the house that I think does some of the best soapy fragrances. If you know, you know. There's no hiding it. But first I want to start with what prompted this video. And this is a Jil Sander fragrance. Go watch my early impression from yesterday. It's called Jil Sander Man Pure. And Man Pure is a pure love for me. Came out in '81, and it's spicy, it's woody, it's green, it's got that, you know, soapy mid of a vintage perfume. Because what's amazing about this is it starts off very aromatic and herbal and green. There's basil and oregano, and I think there was mugwort too, even though it's not listed, maybe some artemisia, that kind of thing. And then it goes into this soapy section of the mid. And then it dries down into this, you know, cleaner but still dirty castoreum. Just a beautiful, you know, again, ram duck territory all the way on Jil Sander Man Pure. And, you know, the crazy thing about it is how many vintage fragrances are like that. No one talks about. No one talks about Jil Sander Man Pure. And luckily I got to wear it yesterday thanks to my good friend Duncan, famous YouTuber, sent me this like 6 months ago, and I just threw it with my 1,000 samples. And sometimes that happens, so if you send me stuff, I will get to it, I promise. But it might take me a little while. And so yesterday was the day I got to this, and it was just like a pure love. I almost think I would maybe buy Jil Sander Man 2 first, because that had more of the leather in it. This is missing the leather. It still has that, you know, spicy tart nutmeg and stuff like that, but it's missing the leather, which I really do love the most. So Man 2 might be higher up on the list, but any of those old Jil Sanders from the early 80s are fire. Okay, so let's get started. The first one, well, I guess Man Pure would technically be the first one. That's a soapy fragrance, but this is an Eldo, and I've got an early impression coming on this, Etat Libre Orange, and this is Exit the King. Now, Exit the King is basically soapy to me because it's made up of this almost like sci-fi synthetic vibe. It has this huge ambroxan, or whatever they're calling their version of ambroxan, orchinox, or I don't know what it's called. But there's this huge aldehydic, peppery, synthetic, soapy smell that you get. And you get musks right from the beginning. You know, the musk is right in your face. The peppery white musk adds to the soapy feel. And it is very floral. And sometimes florals can give off a soapy feel as well. And this has lily of the valley and jasmine in it. But I think it's mostly that ambroxan, whatever they're using as ambroxan here. It is very synthetic, very modern. Not really to my taste, but I will do a video. I have enough where I think I can maybe wear this as my scent of the day and kind of talk about it. Okay, next we're going to go to a Dior, and this is going to be Sauvage Parfum. Okay, so these blue fragrances do give off a clean, soapy vibe to me. I know some people might say that the ambroxan can come across as maybe a little bit more metallic, but even that metallic smell sometimes feels a little bit soapy to me. And the other thing that happens with soapy fragrances is whenever you get lavender, sometimes, depending on how the lavender is used, I've noticed that it can smell like laundry musks, right? For some reason, lavender, the combination of lavender and ambroxan or something like that gives off this laundry musk-like vibe to me. Almost like you just did a fresh load of laundry, you know, and it, while this is a version, the Parfum, that I much more appreciate more than the Eau de Toilette, because it doesn't have that huge, disgusting throw. The Eau de Toilette is like, you know, a professional quarterback throwing a ball 80 yards down the field. This is a little bit more reserved. It still has maybe some higher quality musks than it gets credit for. According to Eurorose, the musks in here are extremely expensive in relation to, you know, other musks used. And, you know, the blue fragrance vibe does give me soapy feel. So that's Sauvage Parfum. Now, if you like that idea, or if you like ambroxan, you know, and I think I did an entire video, this is not a top 10 on ambroxan or ambergris, you can go check that out. The real ambergris fragrance that you can look at is Ombre Suprem. And this is from the house of Les Indémodables. Ombre Suprem is a beautiful, spicy, floral, and this has a dual threat for soapiness because it starts off very aldehydic, and aldehydes sometimes give that open air-like feel, almost like, you know, you are looking up at the sky and it's completely blue sky day. There's not a cloud in the sky, and you just realize how much ozone there is around, how much air there is around you. Ambergris gives you that, you know, that vibe to me. And then it also has neroli, and neroli is probably the number one perpetrator as far as giving that soapy feel. Neroli, orange blossom, petitgrain, I believe they all come from the same plant. And I think it's all how it's harvested, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. I do know neroli in when you're using very high quality neroli, it's a very expensive ingredient. It's not something that, sometimes it can smell cheap if it's not done correctly, or if they don't use high quality materials, but neroli is a extremely expensive material for them to use. And so yes, so there's neroli in here, and aldehydes, and ambergris. And so this one has the triple threat. This is one of the best ambergris perfumes out there, unless you're going to go buy a Ries Ladore's Ombre Suprem. You know, this and, or I'm sorry, Atlantic Ambergris. This and Atlantic Ambergris are probably my two favorite real ambergris perfumes. Okay, so now we're going to go to the turn of the century, and this is from the year 2000. This is a Burberry, and this is Burberry Touch for Men. Now, Burberry Touch for Men uses a gigantic white musk note, and there is some spices. There's some nutmeg and pepper, and it's a little bit woody. There's some cedar, and there is a violet leaf note, which can sometimes also come across as ozonic. Violet leaf can come across as very ozonic. And there's violet leaf, and there's that big white musk in the base. And this is supposed to be like, you know, a fragrance for like the new man, is how they described it when the calendar flipped to the year 2000. This is for the modern man is the way that Burberry described it. And this gives off a very clean, I don't think it smells aquatic at all. I've heard people describe this as aquatic. I don't think it smells aquatic at all. This is nothing like the aquatics of the 90s, but there is this very, again, maybe a little laundry-like white musks in here that give off this soapy, just washed vibe. And, you know, it's for the summertime. If you just want to throw something on, there's nothing wrong with Burberry Touch, and it's a cheapie. Okay, so now we're going to go to some neroli fragrances, and this is one that I wore to bed last night, and this was very kindly sent to me by Armando, I believe it was. And if you go watch my video from a couple days back, I did a This Is Not a Top 10 rhubarb / eucalyptus, and in the beginning of that video, I did an unboxing, and he actually sent me a bunch of stuff. I thought it was just going to be some baby samples. He sent me a ton of stuff, amazing stuff. It was very kind of him. And one of the bottles that he sent me was this. And this is Prada number 11, Cuir Styrax, okay? Now, this particular line, I think is basically like Prada's higher end line. Honestly, I don't know. I had never smelled anything from their higher end line. And I don't know if it's still in business, discontinued. I don't know if they're still doing this line. I never hear anyone talk about it at all. But he sent me two, Cuir Styrax and Cuir Ambre. The Cuir Ambre is stunning. I'm going to wear that as my scent of the day very soon, maybe even tomorrow. This one is still good. I don't love it as much as the Cuir Ambre, which, you know, gives more of this Russian leather vibe, if you will. But this has this Styrax, Neroli, Serenolide, which I'm not sure what kind of chemical or compound that is, vanilla absolute, leather, and frankincense. And you would think, where does the soapiness come from? And I wore this to bed last night. Think of this fragrance like a powdery soapy fragrance, because it does have this clean touch to it. When I first sprayed it, I thought for sure there was iris in it, because I like to wear my fragrances before I look at the note listing and kind of make notes. And what I jotted down was, there's iris in this fragrance for sure. And I looked and there wasn't. But something is giving this powdery iris-like vibe. There might still be iris in here and it's not listed. But there is this powdery soapiness, and it's the neroli. The neroli mixes with this waxy Styrax to give this very interesting take on a powdery, resinous, soapy fragrance. It's very interesting. Even a little leathery in the dry down. Not as leathery as I like it. Not as leathery as the one that I really liked from this that he had sent to me, which was the Cuir Ambre. That was just absolutely stunning. But Cuir Styrax is still good. And this line has kind of taken me back a little bit. I wasn't expecting them to be this good, and they are. Okay, so next we're going to go to a cheapie. And this is a Michel Almerac creation, one of the greatest perfumers, in my opinion. And he created this. This is Sculpture Homme. Now, Sculpture Homme is supposed to look like a you know, sail or something on the water, hence the weird shape. But this is a fragrance that is a cheapie, and it's being marketed by Coty. And even though it's a cheapie, it's not a cheap fragrance, if that makes sense. It's a well-made fragrance, and this has tons of soapy character. Very fresh, very, I wouldn't say very sweet, but there is some designer sweetness to it. There's some tonka in the base with amber, benzoin, cedar, and then it has the combo, the killer combo for soapiness is orange blossom and geranium. And those two combine to give off a big soapy vibe. Fresh, soapy, clean, you know. This is the kind of thing that really gives me, you know, just washed, maybe standing by, you know, you're on vacation standing by an ocean and you just took a shower, that kind of vibe, you know. It really has that just took a shower, fresh, soapy, citrusy. And sometimes citrus is another one that can come across as very soapy. If something is very citrusy, and maybe because it's just our association with being fresh, heavy citruses can sometimes feel very soapy. Now, I will tell you that there's a fragrance I don't have too much experience with. I wore it to bed once, and it did come across as a little fresh and soapy, but green. And the name is actually from the house of Jax Fat, and this is called Green Water. And I bought this fragrance knowing that it probably wasn't going to be for me, because, I mean, it is for me, but it's probably not going to be to my taste. And I usually like heavier stuff. This is a little bit more of a freshie, but this fragrance has a claim to fame. This is the Eau de Toilette, a vintage, from my friend in Italy, Antonio, I think his name was. He did a great job. Everything was packaged well. He did work with me. I had to twist his arm a little bit, but he did work with me on the price. He was very fair, and he had some amazing stuff. If you go click in to my videos and scroll down till you see the Guerlain Oud Cole first impression. It says Oud Cole and unboxing. I probably should have done a second video because the stuff he had was so amazing. There was a 1960s, 50s or 60s Chanel in there. That, stunning stuff. And there was this. And I wore this to bed once already. As you can see, I've decanted it. It's a little bit lower. It's got this, it does have a cap underneath the cap, which I think is cool. But this claim to fame on this fragrance is that it has the most amount of neroli, or Petit Gras neroli combo. I don't know how exactly it was determined, but it has the most amount of neroli used in a fragrance ever. And again, neroli is a very expensive ingredient. And there is, whenever I smelled green water, there was instantly, I mean, like instant, there was a, and by the way, green water came out like 80 years ago or something. It's not new at all. It's not a new fragrance. But there was a Creed that it actually really reminded me of. I think the Creed is a little bit more minty in the top, if you will. It's a little bit more minty than green water, but I didn't include this in there, but this could also be included. And it is called, what is it called? Give me 1 second. Selection Vert. This actually should be included too. I'm going to include this as well, because these two, green water and Creed's Selection Vert, share a lot in common. In fact, now that I'm understanding how Creed, you know, used other famous fragrances as a platform to create their own fragrances, that was the kindest way I could say that, I'm starting to see more and more connections. And Selection Vert, which this is a decant of, this is a 30 ml decant, I think. It was a very generous decant. I got a good price for it too. It has also neroli, citruses, peppers, peppery notes with peppermint, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Jax Fat green water also has peppermint. So this Petit Gras neroli gives you that soapy freshness with the peppermint. Jax Fat, I think, came across as maybe being a little bit more multifaceted. There was maybe a little more moving parts. I only wore it to bed once, okay? So I don't have a ton of experience with this, but it was made by the great Vincent Robert. And it is considered like an icon in the perfume industry. It was a, you know, it was really held up as a you know, reference, as a reference neroli scent, if you will. One of the best freshies from the old days. And Selection Vert from 1970, as Creed says it's from 1970, smells like they took the idea of green water and did what Creed always does, which is use the highest quality materials that they could. So, you know, they price substituted the highest quality neroli possible and a base of ambergris. But if you like one, my guess is you will really like the other. I mean, there are differences. This is from the 40s. This is from the 70s, if you believe Creed. But yes, they both have that neroli citrusy freshness. Okay, so the final neroli fragrance, well, not the final neroli fragrance, but the final one in this little, you know, line of fragrances that I did. I tried to separate things out, but I didn't do such a great job. Is a fragrance from Dunhill, and it's from 2015. It's probably the most best-selling Dunhill ever. I think it's probably the most best-selling Dunhill ever. It really took off. It put Dunhill back on the map because they were a house in terminal decline, and then Carlos Benaim did this for them, and they just shot up. And this is Dunhill's Icon. I love this scent. In fact, Dunhill's Icon is the reason why I don't own Terre de Hermes. It's the reason why I don't own a full bottle of Terre de Hermes. I did a review on Terre de Hermes recently, early impression. You can go watch that, but I don't own a bottle of it. Because of this. I love this. This is peppery neroli absolute, again, which is a very expensive note. They're using neroli absolute, which makes it a little bit deeper. If you remember my video with Russian Adam where we compared some of the Atos versus the absolutes were always a little bit more richer and denser and deeper. So neroli absolute with Petit Gras, and it does have a little bit of this grape soda-like vibe in the opening, but it's bergamot, citruses with pepper, and then that freshness, that soapiness from the neroli hits, and there's provincial lavender. So you get the neroli, You get a little bit of that laundry-like vibe from the lavender, but then the trick with this, and the reason I love this so much, is there's iris, and you know I'm an iris lover. There's oud, what they call oud, and there is a beautiful vetiver. I love the vetiver in the base of this. And what does Terre de Hermes have in the base? Vetiver. So if you don't see the connection to Terre de Hermes at first, wear it back to back or side by side, and you will see. I think Dunhill's Icon, I think Carlos Benaim was strongly encouraged or influenced by Terre de Hermes. Okay, next is a Fred Hayman fragrance, and this is called Touch for Men. Now, Touch for Men you have to be very careful with, because you have to buy, in my opinion, you have to buy the correct version if you want this fragrance. And what you want is you want the one on the bottom that says Parlux. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. It says Parlux. Parlux Fragrances Inc. And Touch for Men is basically a take on Brut. It's like a 90s, this came out in 95. Fred Hayman's Touch for Men is like this citrusy, woody, ambery take on Brut. And Brut has this lavender and spice combo. And the lavender and spice will remind you of like a, you know, barbershop, like a men's barbershop that just had a shave, you splash it on your face, you know, that barbershop fougere like vibe. It's here. It's in Fred Hayman's Touch. So this is the reason I don't own a bottle of Brut, because if I ever feel like wearing this DNA, I will just reach for this. And the Parlux version is good. They did use good quality materials. Okay, so next we're going to go to a 1998 release, and this is done by the great Gerard Anthony. This is right in the heart of aquatic war. You know, in the 90s, everything was aquatics. And so this is called Le Roi Soleil. Beautiful bottle, stunning, with Dali's sad sun on the front. I love this bottle. I think it's a work of art. It's on both sides too. But this is spicy, floral, and it has this grapefruit bergamot opening with this very clean geranium. And so you get lots of citruses. It's very citrusy. And it's a summer fragrance is the way I look at it. But it dries down to something woody, but there's this soapy freshness in the background. So I decided to include it. It's a very unique fragrance. Gerard Anthony did not make bad fragrances. Everything he made was fantastic. And then there was another package sent to me by Justin recently. Again, you guys have been so kind to me. The kindness from the community is overwhelming, actually. I was not expecting that when I started this channel at all. In fact, I remember talking to Eugene about, you know, early on within the first month of me doing this, saying, where are all the trolls at? Like, I was expecting for people to make fun of me and all this stuff. And he's like, man, that's going to come much later. Now, all you're attracting are the true fragrance lovers. And I feel like that's all we've been attracting. So I love it. But this was sent to me by Justin. So thank you very much, my friend. And it's called Façonnable. I got to figure out how to pronounce this. Façonnable. And it's just the 1994 EDT release. I like the interesting presentation with this leather to keep the cap from, I guess, running away. I don't know. But it's got the Façonnable F on the top. And there's the back. The back's a little beat up, but this was a partial he sent me because he's been talking about how much he likes this fragrance for so long. And I wore it to bed the other day, and it has this very fresh, very floral, there's this rosemary, peppermint, and orange opening that instantly goes into the geranium lavender combo. And it's that geranium lavender combo which gives you the soapy vibe. The soapy vibe here is mixed in with that 90s freshness. It really feels extremely fresh. You know, if you're about freshness, if you love freshness in your fragrances, this is probably one of the top, this would be one of the top fragrances in your collection if you like to just smell clean and fresh. And it is very well done, I have to admit. I don't know versions of this fragrance because I am completely ignorant of this house. This is actually the only bottle now in my collection, and I'm just lucky to get to smell it. Yeah, it's very good, very citrusy and fresh, but there is also there's this base, you know, there's cedar and sandalwood and oak moss in the base. Okay, now I want to talk about a floral soapy fresh fragrance, and this is Eau de Rochas Homme. Now, this opens up with aldehydes, and I think it's the aldehydes mixed with the florals that gives me this soapy vibe. There's also this lemon vervain or lemon verbena feel, and it's very citrusy and very fresh. And again, remember I said citruses give me that fresh vibe. I love the packaging too. If you look at the back, if you look right here, it looks like your fingers have touched the bottle and the water has rippled away from when you touched it. Beautiful design. And there is a little bit of this watery, but there's lots of florals in here. And mixed with the aldehydes, you really do get this soapy, fresh, citrusy, floral thing. It's beautiful. It's probably one of the best bang for your bucks. I could have included Neroli Sauvage by Creed as well, because I think they, again, use this as an inspiration to create Neroli Sauvage in 1994. This came out in 1993, and of course this is 25 bucks. Neroli Sauvage is 500 bucks because Creed. Okay, so next we're going to go to the house of Helmut Lang, and this is the original Eau de Cologne from the year 2000. And this is floral, fresh, it's got lavender, and it has those white musks in the base. And so very similar to how I mentioned from the year 2000, again, just so happenstance, or maybe not so happenstance, Burberry Touch was from the year 2000 with those white musks. This also has big white musks, so that was very popular in that time. White musks with the lavender give this very clean, very fresh, soapy feel to me. And Helmut Lang EDC is a good fragrance. This is discontinued. Someone was telling me they came out with another version that's very, very good and almost identical to this, but I've never smelled anything except for this one. Okay, next we're going to go to the house of Pharrell Williams. This was done by Comme des Garçons, and this is called Girl. Now, this is an interesting fragrance because there are Fahrenheit vibes in this. There is violet, and you know, it doesn't have that gasoline opening, but what ends up happening is it opens up with peppery, lavender, and neroli. So there's your combo right at the top. So it opens up soapy and, you know, laundry-like. It has that fresh laundry vibe in the opening with this one. And then it begins to dry, and it begins to bring in iris, and it begins to bring in the violet, and there's a little bit of Styrax. So there's some similarities between, you know, something like Cuir Styrax and Pharrell Williams Girl, but this goes much more into the Fahrenheit DNA. This Cuir Styrax stays much more powdery. And I'm shocked there's no iris note here. There is an iris note listed here. It smells like there's iris in both of them, but there's definitely iris here. And you just get this soapy lavender, very herbal, you know, and it's almost like if you took Fahrenheit and added this soapy lavender freshness on top. I think it's a fantastic fragrance, and it's an Antoine Lee, and he doesn't make bad fragrances. He's very quickly turning into one of my favorite perfumers. Okay, next we're going to go to an MWaj. There's a couple MWajes on this list. You might laugh when I first say this, but hear me out. It's true. This is a soapy fragrance. Now, it's not known for that. It's known for a different note, but I'm telling you, it's a soapy fragrance. This is Lyric Man. Now, the reason I said hang on is most people are thinking, this is a rose fragrance. What are you talking about? It is. It's a floral, spicy, green rose fragrance that has a huge soapy orange blossom and musk note in here. And that orange blossom and musk plays a big part in this fragrance because basically this is a fresh rose. It's a fresh take on the rose DNA. I did a review on Lyric Woman, if you would like, and while that's a very good fragrance, I don't think I'm going to try to get a full bottle because I have so many other rose fragrances that go into the deeper, richer, maybe a little bit more animalic vibe, a little bit more, you know, you could think of this like the daytime and Lyric Woman like the nighttime, but the soapiness here, if you wear it a couple times, that fresh soapiness, I think, is what puts people off. It's unexpected. You know, of all the unexpected things in this fragrance, there's galbanum, which is green. There's angelica, which I love. There's pine, which seems strange and out of place to have a rose, pine, galbanum. It's a very green take on a rose, but then you have that freshness, and it's not just the orange blossom, it's also ginger and lime, and then you add in that patented MWaj frankincense, and it's just like, I don't think people can take it, you know, it's too much. It was too much for me at first. Now that I've worn it, understand it, all that good stuff, I completely get where the soapiness is coming from and why it's so important to be in here. But this is a soapy, clean rose fragrance, which is shocking to most people because normally the soapy, cleaner roses are the women's fragrances, and the more animalic, dirty, heavier roses are the men's roses. And so, yeah, the MWaj kind of played a gender trick, I think, and put the more feminine rose in the man's bottle, and they put the more masculine rose in the women's bottle, but they're both amazing. Both Lyric bottle. You can't go wrong with either one. But this is a soapy fragrance. And then we're going to go to my old man's signature scent from early 1970s, 1973. This is Paco Rabon Pour Homme. This is a green, spicy, soapy fougere with so many moving parts to it. It's got that lavender, it's got the geranium, but it also has a hint of honey. Oh, this is such a great barbershop fougere, old school barbershop fougere. It smells so fresh. I have so many memories attached to this scent. It is, you know, if you can get the one with the raised R, there's like 5 iterations of this. You know, they've reformulated it over and over and over. Don't pay huge money for the oldest juice. If you can just find one with the R raised, it is very good. This is a fantastic, one of the best fougeres, and I always chuckle when people try to make fun of scents like Paco Rabon Pour Homme. They just prove their ignorance in the fragrance world when they do that. Okay, next we're going to go to a discontinued Paco Rabon. This is Sport de Paco Rabon. Now, what's crazy about Sport de Paco Rabon is this came out 13 years after Paco Rabon Pour Homme. And I think Rosendu Matu was the perfumer for this one. Whereas with the original Paco Rabon Pour Homme, it was Jean Martel. So different perfumers. But I think what they've done here is they've added even more soapiness on top. So with this, it has that old school masculine, you know, fougere DNA. And inherently, there's some soapiness with the greenness. Here, it feels like with Sport de Paco Rabon, it feels like they took the DNA of Paco Rabon and they added this extra soapy top with lots of lemons and citruses, petitgrain, lavender, you know, this sporty, soapy top. And then they just have basically the heart and DNA of Paco Rabon Pour Homme underneath. This is a great sport fragrance. I love sport fragrances from the 80s. I wore Hugo Boss Sport from the 80s to bed a week or two ago, and it was fantastic. I absolutely love that fragrance. If it wasn't for Antea Sport, that would be my favorite sport fragrance. This is probably third, but this is very, very good. And if you want soapy barbershop, like, you know, sport fragrance, here you go. You're not going to do much better than this. And then there is a fragrance that I think Paco Rabon Pour Homme really inspired. So Paco Rabon Pour Homme came out in 73. This came out in 1975. And this is Bogart by the house of Jax Bogart. Some people call it Bogart's signature, but it's actually just called Bogart by the house of Jax Bogart. And this takes a page out of Paco Rabon Pour Homme's book and then goes in its own direction. So it starts off smelling very similar, and you're going to think you're getting a little bit of a fougere. It's green, it's spicy, it's got that rosemary from Paco Rabon Pour Homme and nutmeg and stuff like that, and lavender and geranium and all that good stuff. And this one has a ton of lemon blossom, and the lemon blossom mixed with the lavender will give you that soapy, fresh feeling in the opening, but then this fragrance does a trick, and this is one of the best $20 fragrances money can buy. This fragrance goes right turn and dries down into this smoky Russian leather with clove. Okay, crazy. Smoky Russian leather with clove with that soapy, you know, barbershop fougere opening. It's insane. It's a crazy fragrance, but I absolutely love it. I think it's probably, you know, I think it's maybe considered more of a chiffre. I don't know. I don't know what this is actually considered. I think it's a blend of the two. But there's birch in here because it's Russian leather. That's where the smoke comes from. But if you like old school fragrances, you are going to love Bogart by the house of Jax Bogart. Okay, so next, we're going to go to some aldehydic fragrances. And excuse me whilst I hydrate. So, obviously, the one that everyone knows is Chanel No. 5. Somehow, the Chanel aldehydes give me this soapy feel. Obviously, aldehydes are one of the ways that you can get soapy vibes. And Chanel No. 5, this is the Eau de Cologne, by the way. I should mention that. I don't know. I do have the EDT. I don't like it as much. I like the Eau de Cologne much more. I only have a little bit to play with, but I enjoy it. It is aldehydes with that patented neroli, ylang, iris, jasmine, lily of the valley, rose, and what they call violet root, which is very strange. I got to do some research on what the hell violet root is compared to violet leaf. Violet, I thought they only used the leaves, that the violet was basically like a mute flower, but I have to do some research on this violet root. And then, of course, the dry down, which the Eau de Cologne seems to have maybe a little bit more civet in the base. But this does give off this soapiness in the opening from the aldehydes and the neroli. There is a fragrance, though, that came out in 1947. So we're talking, what, 26 years after No. 5 came out in 21. And it's called Le 10 by Balenciaga. And this was sent to me by Amouage very kindly. Amouage sent this to me in a big haul that I did. Look at the Balenciaga bees all over the top. Beautiful presentation. I love this bottle. And I love this fragrance. I like this more than No. 5. My God. This is, you know, I just trust my nose. That's all. When I stand up here and say I like this or I like that, all I do is smell it and I trust my nose inherently. This is one of the most beautiful floral chiffres I have ever smelled, ever. There's a little bit of Mitsuko in here. There's a little bit of No. 5 in here. There's a lot of Balenciaga's, you know, the Balenciaga in here. And the aldehydes in this, the way that they blend with the florals, and then you add that fruity peach and a little bit of coriander, I like this more, actually. I know some people might think I'm nuts off my rocker. No. 5 is the greatest, you know, best-selling fragrance of all time, but there is something about this that is so special. And there is a little bit of that soapiness in the top from the aldehydes. And sometimes, like I said, florals can come off that way. Okay, next, we're going to go to another MWaj. And this MWaj is unfortunately discontinued. MWaj does not discontinue many scents. And the good news is no one talks about this. No one likes this fragrance but me, apparently. So you can still find it at a good price. And if you find it, get it. It came out in 2003, and I think it got discontinued 5-6 years ago. But it's called MWaj CL Man. Now, CL Man, there's the bottom of my box for anyone interested in said batch codes. This fragrance is a stunner because it's one of the few. Look at the dent. That is my dent that I put in this bottle. Look at that. I have worn the piss out of this fragrance. And the reason is when it's hot in Texas, and it's hot a lot, and I want to wear something that is, you know, weather specific, let's say. This is what I reach for. It has this amazing lavender floral combination with this freshness. And I have no clue where this freshness comes from, because I know there's spices, and there is an amazing peach note in here too. Speaking of the peach in Ladis, there's an amazing peach in CL. And CL has this peach note with the spices, and then that frankincense you expect from MWaj. The copy says that this is supposed to be like a spring thunderstorm, you know, sunny day, spring thunderstorm rolls through and it's gone in 15 minutes and then you're back to your day. And I completely understand what they mean by that. The lavender in the top is what I think gives me this soapy vibe. And this isn't laundry detergent like I've said with some of the other ones. This is soapiness. This is clean soapiness. And it's very well done. You know, someone might look at this and say, like I've said with some of MWaj's other releases like Meander and Enclave, that's not an MWaj. They might look at this and say, this is not an MWaj. But it has this frankincense in the base that does tie it together, but it really feels like MWaj tried to do something different here. And I think they succeeded. I think they created something amazing. But you have to, you know, I can see why it didn't sell well, let's say. That lavender maybe feels like it's 10 or 20 years out of date in this fragrance, but it's beautiful. I love it. And the quality is top-notch. So anyways, that's CL. And then probably the, there's another MWaj coming up, but first I want to do this. This is Jean-Paul Gaultier's Flora Dumont, that white bottle. That white, clean, crisp. You know, this is Francis Kirkjohn. Some say his best work. I don't agree, but it's up there. This has the trifecta. This has Petitgrain in the top, Neroli and Orange Blossom in the mid, and Chamomile, Coumarin, and Basil in the base. And it's a sweet, floral bomb. This stuff lasts forever. It's very risky to issue a floral scent for men. This was marketed towards men. But there is this very clean soapy. I mean, look at the color of the bottle. You really do get this clean vibe from this. And I usually wear this in the warmer weather, even though it's a bomb of a fragrance. I usually wear it in the warmer weather, but it is discontinued. Okay, next we're going to go to the MWaj that, to me, both of these came out in 2007, by the way. Fleur de Mal and Reflection Man. I have no clue which one came out first, but someone, you know, looked at the other one and went, holy shit, we got to make something like that. So obviously it was going, or you know, industry insiders are insiders for a reason, and they knew that, you know, this DNA was popular in 2007. But this is also considered a floral sweet fragrance. It also has neroli and stuff like that. There's a lot of similarities. But this adds this jasmine. But this gives off this very clean, freshly washed, pressed. This gives off this white shirt vibe. That's the best way I can describe it. If you're going to go to work in a buttoned up white shirt, you know, maybe tie, maybe no tie, maybe just unbuttoned a little bit, but it's got to be crisp, clean, pressed, ironed, you know, starched white shirt. That's what Reflection Man reminds me of. That's the vibe that Reflection Man gives me. And, you know, if you like smelling clean, I don't know if you can do better than this. This is one of the top clean smelling fragrances to me. You know, you can see that they went with metallic rather than white, but I think these two are definitely two peas in a pod. I prefer Reflection Man, but this is still very good. Okay, now we're going to get into a very interesting category, maybe my favorite category for soapy fragrances, and that's what I'm going to call the challenging category. Okay, so the challenging category for soapy fragrances are fragrances that are challenging. They use notes that many might be off-put by: leathery, smoky, animalic, you know, stuff like that, gunpowder, all kind of crazy stuff. But then there's usually some sort of transition, or there's like a soapy bit and then it transitions again. So the first one is going to be Lone Star Memories by Andy Tower. Now, you might have fallen out of your chair right now and said, what in the hell are you talking about, Ramsey? There is not a soap note in sight in this fragrance. And you would be right. But again, I'm trusting my nose. There is this powdery carrot seed in here. My impression of this, I think I even wrote a Fragrantica review on this. You can go read it. But it feels like you are smelling a cowboy on a ranch wearing his leather stirrups and, you know, his chaps, and he's got his gun, and it's late at night, and he decides that he wants to make a coffee, and he starts the coffee. He has a metal coffee pot. You know, he's got the fire going. You get the smoke. There's a little bit of birch. There's a lot of cistus labdanum and leather and myrrh and stuff like that. And the cowboy falls asleep because he's tired. And then he wakes up and the coffee's burned. It's a sludge. He decides to throw the coffee away and make tea in that same pot, right? And then he decides, you know what? When I was burning it, smoke got all over me, and I've been riding this horse. There's this animalic horse next to me. Animal vibes, or as Jil Sanders would say, animalized. If you watched my video from yesterday, you would get that strange reference. And then he whips out a bar of green geranium soap and washes himself clean. And all of the resins and myrrh just falls into this green geranium soap, and it has this smoky, dirty, little bit animalic, resinous, powdery, versus the dichotomy of the clean geranium soap that he took a shower in the lake with. That's why Lone Star Memories is on this list. And I think this is this is actually my favorite Andy Tower fragrance of all time. Full stop. I like this more than Leo du Desert Marocain. I think this is the most artistic, grand fragrance. This is like going into a grand ballroom, you know. It's a huge fragrance. Oh, I love this stuff, man. I can't wait to wear it. So yes, that is why Lone Star Memories is on the list. And then a similar fragrance, well, not similar in smell, but similar in insanity, is this. This is Beaufort's Iron Duke. And you might be thinking, Iron Duke, you said this was compared to Royal Tobacco by MWaj, the release from this year. That's supposed to be like tobacco and, you know, oily frankincense. And yeah, it is compared to that. This is tobacco, oud, liquor, star anise, animalic notes, leather, metallic notes, charred wood, gunpowder, bourbon whiskey, hay, and musk. Insane note breakdown. But in the middle, in the mid, there is literally a soap note listed. And I get it. I get a little bit of this clean white soap right along with all the other crazy, you know, this smells like you're sitting in a tank in World War II and your superior officer behind you is, you know, drunk off his ass because he knows he's going to die. And so he's just completely blitzkrieged, and you're in this tank, and, you know, there's blood and gunpowder in the air, and, you know, fields burning off in the background, and you run off and grab a bar of soap and try to wash really quick. That's why I say the artistic This is the artistic category or challenging category of soapy fragrances. And then my favorite challenging soapy fragrance, if you know, leave it in the comment and tell me that you knew this was what was coming. This is YSL's Koras. Yes, there is a soapy facet to YSL Koras. No, this is not my original vintage bottle. This is a BRI. But I've said this before, any bottle of Koras with the silver shoulders right here is worth it. The new stuff doesn't have that growl, you know, it doesn't have it's like a kitten. It's like a kitten with claws. Yeah, the kitten has claws, but it's not really going to hurt you. That's what the new stuff smells like. The silver shoulder stuff is all good. There are differences, and you can go into a huge rabbit hole. But basically, Koras, I mean, what can you say about Koras how can you describe Koras to someone who hasn't smelled it? Koras is Pierre Bourdon's masterpiece to me. It's my favorite Pierre Bourdon scent. And it has this aldehydic, animalic, civet, pissy opening. Some people say it smells like a urinal cake. I don't think it smells like a urinal cake. But it does have this insane, again, dichotomy of dirty versus clean. The civet is like this raunchy, animalic, sexualized, you know, almost like a uncontrollable sexual beast on one hand, or a man who was out, you know, sweating, working, dirty. He's got sweat dripping from his face and body. His clothes are soaked. And then he goes and he takes a shower. And, you know, Rich Mitch has said before, he thinks that this is the story of a man bathing. And I know exactly what he means by that. And if you look at a Koras itself is actually one of those old Greek statues from way back when. And usually they're in white marble or something like that. And that's where the name comes from, Koras. But it has this aldehydic, you know, soapy vibe that contrasts the pissy, musky, honey, civet. And I think that Koras is maybe a little bit closer to a fougere than a chiffre. I know Eugene thinks this is a chiffre. The debate on what the hell Koras is will probably last forever amongst fragrance enthusiasts. But one thing I will say is this animalic, spicy, you know, clean, dirty dichotomy is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. If you've never smelled Koras with the silver shoulders and you're a fragrance lover, it is a must. Okay, so let's go into another category of what I would call soapy fragrances. And so this is going to be an MOP fragrance, and you may be shocked. But I'm going to show these because, you know, I have them in my collection, and why not? I usually don't talk about clones, and this is kind of a clone. But these brands, some of these brands don't deserve the respect or credit or, you know, because of what they've done with their prices. I mean, Chanel's put their prices up like 3 times this year. You know, fine, you want to put your prices up. Put them up once a year, twice a year. Wait a little bit. You don't have to put them up over and over and over and over. People are just going to stop buying, and I think that's what they're doing. But this is MOP Legacy. And Legacy is a clone of Platinum Egoiste, which to me is Chanel's take on something like Cool Water, Green Irish Tweed, you know, that kind of DNA. Chanel obviously couldn't be seen as following the trend, so they tried to do something different. And yes, this does have a little bit of metallic feel, but it also has a soapy feel to me. There's rosemary, lavender, and petit grain in the top, with rose, jasmine, galbanum, and sage, sandalwood, moss, cedar, and oak moss. And you know what? The freshness here, the smell, for 100 mils, or I don't know what you would even call this, you know, look at MOP's ingredient list. It's hilarious. It's like you're reading an ingredient list off of a vintage perfume. Alcohol, denat, aqua. You know, and this is a 2000, and when was this made? Batch July of 2020. this was made. And that's how our MOP does their ingredients. How hilarious. Must be great to be in the UAE or wherever where there's no restrictions. But I mean, this is an insane bottle, obviously, this, you know, lighter bottle. But look at the attention to detail. And I think this is a good fragrance. I don't think this smells cheap. I don't think this smells like a clone. I mean, it's very good. I've never had Platinum Egoist on one hand and Legacy Man on another and done a side-by-side comparison, but this is the reason I don't own Platinum Egoist. So again, that's soapy, metallic, fresh, fougere. Good fragrance. Had to be on the list. And then one that probably did not have to be on the list, but it has this barbershop vibe, this pillar of barbershop strength from 75 years ago. It's L'Enfant Figaro. Now, the whole trio of fragrances, L'Enfant, Monsieur, L'Enfant, or whatever it was. Monsieur was one, Figaro was another, and there was a third. I think it was Vetiver. So whenever Charles of the Ritz decided they wanted to expand into the United States, they used L'Enfant as that platform in the 1960s. So L'Enfant also wanted to expand into the United States, so they joined forces, right? That was what happened. This was the quickest to be discontinued of the trio of 3 perfumes that L'Enfant put out. I think Vetiver and Monsieur, I think it's called Monsieur. I can't remember exactly. Forgive me if it's not Monsieur, but if you look at whatever L'Enfant's Gentleman scent from, the early 60s is, you'll see it. I love that scent. That's a beautiful animalic civet. Lovely. I'd love a bottle of that. Someone sent me this. They said, hey, it doesn't really vibe with me. I'm going to decant it into a bottle and send it to you. I said, great. I've never worn it or smelled it. I haven't talked about it on the channel yet, but it's long discontinued. It's basically citruses, lavender, this some sort of green take. I don't know what the greenery is, but there's clary sage, cedarwood, and civet. Now, the civet here is turned down much more than in the Monsieur L'Enfant. Some people say this smells like a cheap 1950s barbershop, drugstore fragrance. I don't think so. I think this smells like the ingredients are higher quality, especially with the crap we're getting today. If you smell this, you're going to smell high quality materials. It doesn't smell like a drugstore scent to me, but it does have this barbershop vibe, this talc powder barbershop thing. I mean, look at the guy on the front, like he just got a cut and went to the sauna, went to the pool, played some golf. I mean, that's the vibe, this fresh, clean. And yet there's a little bit of that civet underneath, but I like it. So it had to be in the soapy fragrance list. Okay, next is a Rogue Perfumery fragrance, and it's called Mousse Illuminée. Now, this scent is absolutely unbelievable because Mousse Illuminée is this green, spicy, huge amount of tree moss or oak moss or whatever you want to call it, whatever they're using in here. And he used to be IFRA non-compliant back in the day. He's now IFRA compliant. I think if you can find these older bottles that have the cap that looks like this, you're getting the non-compliant ones. And if you find the newer bottles where the cap looks clear, almost like this. So if the cap looks clear like this, I think you're getting one of the newer bottles. But don't quote me on that because, number one, I have never smelled any of the new bottles. I've never done a comparison, but I love this stuff. This smells like it's IFRA non-compliant. It smells like there is a ton of oak moss in here with white musks and white blossoms. And this smells like you've taken oak moss and blended that oak moss into a foam and then put it all over your body, or washed your face with it or shaved with it, or you know, it has this pillowy, almost like if you could create a cloud out of oak moss in the sky, that's what this fragrance smells like. I mean, look at the oak moss right here, or lichen, whatever you want to call it. Oh man, it is so, and it's got this green Artemisia bay leaf, and it has this lemony, very tangy, sharp frankincense, you know, almost like you're smelling eucalyptus, almost like that zingy tartness of eucalyptus, right? It's here, but it's frankincense, and it's just so soapy and barbershoppy. So now we're getting into the barbershops, okay? I didn't want to say barbershop with Legacy because it's got that metallic-like vibe, but it kind of is. And then Mousse Illuminé. Now we're going to get into the real soapy fragrance for me, the king soapy fragrance, or the king barbershop fragrance, I should say. And here you go. This is YSL's Rive Gauche Pour Homme. Now, this is a Jacques Cavalier perfume, and this old, you know, it almost looks like a shaving foam canister. It's, you know, it's in that shaving foam-like canister, and it almost also looks like a barbershop pole, doesn't it? And this is rosemary with star anise, geranium, clove, lavender, gaiac wood, patchouli, and vetiver. But basically, it smells like a very clean, you know, it smells like a dad who just shaved. It's the ultimate dad fragrance. Like a dad just shaved, gonna go make breakfast for the family on a Sunday morning. That's what I think of with Rive Gauche Pour Homme. It's really good. I usually wear this in the summer because it doesn't last forever. There is an intense version. I've never smelled it though. But, I mean, people are asking outrageous money for this because it's long discontinued. And this used to be a cheapie. This was 10, 20, 30 bucks back in the day. But it is a very good, extremely good, spicy, woody, you know, barbershop fragrance, you could say. And then maybe one of the king soapy fragrances. We're getting into the big boys for soapy fragrances here. And again, this list is not ranked. But when I think of soapy fragrances, there's a handful that instantly comes to mind. And this is one of them. The Purple Juice. Sung Homme from the house of Alfred Sung. Now, this is a Riviera Concepts bottle. I don't know if you can see that. But I got this from Amouage. The Riviera Concepts are the older ones. The newer ones are Revlon, or, you know, actually I have a newer one here. Hang on one moment. And you can kind of see the difference in juice color too. Look at this. This is the older one, and this is the newer one. Look at this, right? So the newer one is... Who makes this? EA, Elizabeth Arden. So this must have been before Revlon took over the license for Alfred Sung. So this is Elizabeth Arden. There's even a newer one. Revlon, I think, unless I'm incorrect. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't think Elizabeth Arden is Revlon. I don't think EA is Revlon. But again, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is a $10 fragrance, basically. And I have no clue how Artemisia, basil, bergamot, caraway, pepper, sage, juniper, lemon, aldehydes, carnation, geranium, jasmine, caraway, stone pine needles, rose, oak moss, leather, musk, patchouli, sandalwood, fir, vetiver, and cedar just smells like soap. How in the hell does all of that just smell like a clean bar of soap? How? I don't understand it to this day. But I will do a comparison video between these two. It's very close to the top of my comparison video list. I do have a list. This and Musk Ravageur and the Derby, Guerlain's Derby, are the three at the top of the comparison list. But Sung Homme is king soapy fragrance. And then I don't have Mugler's original cologne because I have this instead. This is Creed's Original Vetiver, which is basically a take on Mugler's cologne. And this is so soapy, fresh, green. One of my favorite fresh vetivers, actually. It comes across as a very clean, fresh, soapy vetiver, white musky dry down with that Creed ambergris. It is beautiful. It is very professional. I mentioned wearing vetiver fragrances to work yesterday, like Nishane's Sultan Vetiver, or, you know, Encre Noir, and I think vetiver is a very professional note. This is perfect for where I live. Guerlain's vetiver, perfect for where I live because 9 months of the year it's hot. And these kind of vetivers work very well in the hot. Professional, you know, when you want to smell professional and serious, austere, you know, focused, that kind of thing. You're not screwing around. You wear vetiver. There is this freshness from ginger, but it smells very similar to Mugler's cologne, which Mugler's cologne was based off of a bar of soap that Thierry Mugler found when he was in Morocco or something. I forget, but yeah, that's what it was originally based on. Okay, now we're going to get to Prada. Prada is the ultimate in soapy fragrances. They make they are one of the king soapy fragrance houses. And I'm going to show you 3 from Prada. So the first one is called Prada L'Homme Intense. Okay, which there was a rumor for a while that this was discontinued. And I'm glad that rumor is not true. It is still being marketed. It is still available, apparently. But for a while, people were worried that this was going to be discontinued. But Prada L'Homme Intense is basically Prada's take on the Dior Homme DNA. So you have the iris, amber, patchouli, tonka, and this is a powdery... Remember how I said that Cuir Styrax is a powdery, soapy fragrance? This is powdery, soapy, sweet. So if you like your fragrances to have a little bit of sweetness, this is one to put on the to sniff list. The tonka here is sweet. I do still like it. I do still think it's a good fragrance. I don't have the original Prada L'Homme Low or whatever they call it. This is Prada L'Homme Intense, but from 2017. But it is still a very good soapy fragrance. One of the best soapy fragrances. Prada does beautiful soapy fragrances. And then the king soapy fragrance for me are these 2. I can't even separate them. You've got Ambre Pour Homme, Prada Ambre Pour Homme, and Prada Ambre Pour Homme Intense. And I will tell you just right off of the bat, the biggest difference between these 2 is that the patchouli in this is extremely amped up. Okay? So the patchouli in Prada Ambre Pour Homme Intense is much heavier than the patchouli that's used here. There is patchouli here, but it's much more about the neroli, orange blossom, you know, even the myrrh comes through. There is a leather note in here. There's labdanum, and somehow this powdery, fresh, soapy creation was born. And it is and it's an amazing fragrance. I will admit that. I mean, for work, I don't know if you can do much better than this. I'm always worried this is going to be discontinued. Apparently, it is still available, and it's I don't know. It says currently L'Oreal owns the house of Prada. Okay, and this is Fragrance and Skincare SL. Does anyone know if that's different from the current stuff that L'Oreal is putting out? If you do, leave it in the comments. I'd love to know. But yes, I love both of these. This is a little bit cleaner. This is a little bit heavier because of that patchouli. But if you like patchouli, if you like, you know, patchouli heavy fragrances, Yeah, it feels like a couple notes are amped up. The patchouli and the myrrh. The myrrh and the patchouli feel like they're amped up here, but it's a very good fragrance. Look at this. This bottle is just beat to hell, and it's like right here. I don't have very much juice left, but still enough to own and talk about it and stuff like that. But I think both of these are marketed by L'Oreal, I guess, or Puig, or I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the house of Prada, but yes, I mean, as far as soapy fragrances go, these last three that I showed you are probably at the top of the list. Sorry, the bottle is actually leaking. I got some on my hands. It is beautiful. It really is a beautiful scent. I need to be careful with this because it is leaking. So that's my soapy fragrance video. Unranked. One day I will rank these. I'm going to rank all my This Is Not a Top 10. So you guys have a lot of me to see still. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Dunhill Blend 30, man. Oh, man. It is so good. But thank you for watching. Let me know what your favorite soapy fragrances are in the comments below. And I hope you appreciated the video. It was good chatting with everybody today. So I hope to see your faces in the comments. Everyone that likes, subscribes, comments is always very appreciated. Thank you to the people that sent me stuff that showed up in the video. Duncan and Armando and Justin and, you know, I think Eddie sent me Exit the King, and I just on and on and on and on. So many people sent me stuff. So anyone who sent me anything, if I haven't got to it yet, please be patient. I promise I will get to it soon. So thank you everyone for watching. Cheers. See you again tomorrow. Bye now.